his burial, and his resurrection. And this is why in Acts chapter 1, verses 8, he gives them the course that they need to follow in converting people. And instead of converting them the way Jesus said, they did part of what he said, and the rest they sit down and did nothing. Did the apostles know the power that Jesus had? Did they think the power was gone after Jesus left? You think? You think the people and the apostles, huh? Well, it wasn't long they found out that the power was still here. Because anytime a person or a group of people become disobedient to the God of heaven, what can they expect? They can expect some punishment. Well, what was the form of punishment that God sent on Jerusalem then? Because of Jerusalem's lack of intensity in going and teaching the gospel to all people and all nations. Well, let me help you to appreciate it. God sent a man by the name of Saul in to whip him. I use the term whip because he was literally beating up on people, hailing both men and women in prison and killing them. Who was it there consenting unto Stephen's death in Acts chapter 6 and 7? It was Saul. And wasn't long after that, Herod got on board, and then it became a national crime pretty much to be a Christian, because it didn't do what God said to do. And a lot of good innocent people suffered as a result of them failing to do God's will. Now everybody didn't fail. Philip didn't fail, but his family and Philip had to suffer along with everybody else. If this congregation doesn't do what it's supposed to do, who's going to suffer? The congregation is going to suffer it. Now you might be doing your part as an individual, but you're going to suffer some along with the congregation. Unfortunately, I don't know, when we had the war here between this country, the North and the South, there were some people trying to be neutral in the war, but they suffered anyway. We cannot be neutral in the gospel of Jesus Christ. You're going to suffer. And so we might as well, if we're going to suffer, we need to suffer as a what, Sister Mary? As a Christian, and glorify God on this behalf. If I'm going to suffer, let it be for the cause of Christ. That way, at least I know that when my life here on earth is over, I'm going to have some joy with Him in heaven. But now, if I suffer as an evildoer, I'm going to suffer here in this world, and I'm also going to suffer in the one to come. So Jesus was letting them know that the harvest is already here. If we look at it from a personal standpoint, can we say that that also applies to those of us here in Starkville, Mississippi, who are members of the body of Christ? The harvest is already white. If it's white under harvest, cotton, when it's white, it's ready to be what? If the harvest is ripe, it's ready to be what? Is the harvest ripe here in this city? It is. There are people in this city desire to be saved. They don't like all this ungodliness that's going on. They don't like all the killing and the shooting and the murders and the thieving and the robbing going on. They want to do what's right. Then we're doing them a disservice, and we're doing ourselves a disservice if we fail to teach them. That means if we're going to teach them, what are we going to have to do first? We got to do it ourselves, but you got to leave your comfort zone. If you're unwilling to leave your comfort zone, you'll never go and teach anybody. So that means I'm going to have to do some things that I'm really not comfortable in doing. And what's going to make me go? It's going to be Christ. Christ is the one that's going to make me go. my love for him. He's not going to force me. He said, whosoever will, let him come. So my love for him will cause me to go ahead and do it and leave my comfort zone in spite of everything. Herein is the saying true. One soweth and another one reapeth. I said unto you to reap that whatsoever ye shall what? Restore no labor. If we're thinking about this particular passage here, sowing and the reaping process. Who did the sowing in Samaria? Jesus, but it had to be done also by somebody else. Jesus laid the foundation, but somebody else did some sowing in Samaria. Jesus laid the foundation, made the way easy, but somebody else had to go and present the opportunity to them, give them the opportunity to be saved. Had to be a Christian. We're Christians. Now, by chance, it could have been any Christian, but it was not any Christian. It was a specific Christian. And who was the specific individual? It was Philip. Now, what prompted Philip to go and what prompted the others not to go? Now, Peter, John, all of them were there in the city, and they noticed what had transpired. They heard the woman talking to Jesus on part of the occasion. They heard the people coming talking to him. And then while the people were still there, Jesus said, look upon the harvest. It's already white. They heard that. And all of them were there in Jerusalem when the church began. Philip went because of the nature, his nature, and the type of heart that he had. Philip was an individual that did not look at people and discriminate against them because of who they were. Philip was not in the number that was with Jesus when he went through Samaria. He was not there. In fact, he was not even an apostle. Philip was a Gentile. He was one of those people that came from one of those other cities, other countries. And he stayed in Jerusalem as a result of him obeying the gospel. And then, after they had done what they're supposed to in Jerusalem and in Judea, then Philip completed his role as a deacon in Acts chapter 6. And then Philip recognized the fact that these folks over here are lost, and I need your teaching. Jesus sent his disciples out, how? 2 by 2. How many people went with Philip? Nobody else went with him. Why? The apostles didn't even go. That might be the reason why they suffered too. The apostles suffered just like everybody else. Just because they were apostles doesn't mean they were exempt from suffering. Now, we see that after Philip's work was completed in Jerusalem, he went to Samaria and preached Christ to them. When his work was completed there in Samaria, we can see whether the Spirit called him away to Azotus. And we don't know what happened to Philip after that, but we know that his life was a good life. He started off in a positive sense. And we don't read nowhere where anything negative occurred to him. We don't read nowhere in the scriptures where Philip became unfaithful to the Lord. We don't read nowhere in the scriptures where Philip had the same kind of problem that Peter had. And why would I use Peter in this anyway? Peter is the one who the Lord gave the keys to. And the keys were more than one. The keys were the keys to unlock salvation. First to the Jews. And next it should have been the half Jew and half Gentile, which was the Samaritan. And he didn't do it. And the next it should have been the Gentile. Now he did it with the Gentile, but he didn't do it with the Samaritan. And he argued with God about going down to work with the Gentile. In Acts chapter 10, God told him he was in a trance on the top rooftop, and God told him, rise, slay, and eat. He said, not so, Lord, not me. It doesn't come unclean, never enter into my mouth. God was not talking about what he was going to physically eat. He's talking about going to the Gentile. And Peter argued with God. Sometimes we argue with him too. Because the lesson, we just don't get out of it what we ought to be getting out of it. And we just, somebody not holding our hand and pushing us. We don't have no immediate danger. And so we see no reason to do what? No reason to move. But we need to move. We need to move because people are lost. We need to be moving and teaching because we ourselves could be lost if we don't do that. Have a comment, Sister Mary? What did I leave off? What verse? So when the Samaritans were come unto him, they besought him that he would do what? Tarry with them, and he abode there how long? 2 days. But you never heard that talk before, where that not only he went through Samaria, but he stayed there 2 more days. Why did he spend so much time with him?
He was teaching them.
Beg pardon?
Many people believed him when he was saying he was teaching them.
Now the Jews wanted to kill him. But now the Samaritans wanted to hear everything he had to say. So can you understand how easy it was now for Philip to convert the Samaritans? Because Jesus had not only spent time with a woman, but he spent time with the city itself. What was he doing while he was there, Sister Mary? Read that next two or three verses there. What I think on verses 40.
The Samaritan went to Jesus. They begged him to stay with them, so he stayed with them 2 days. Many more people became believers because of the things he said. The people said to the woman, first we believed in Jesus because of what you told us, but now we believe what we heard. We believe because we heard him ourselves. We know now that he is the one who can save the world.
Now, that's what the Samaritans said. But now, what was the Jews saying? Kill him. Why were the Jews saying kill him? Because he exposed their wrongdoing. When you expose people's sin or their wrongdoing, they want to hurt you too. Your best friend, he can do something wrong, and somebody asks you about it, and you tell the truth, he'll get mad at you. Why should he get mad at you?
I would say the truth.
That's right. But now I'm keep pushing the fact so you understand how easy it was for Philip to convert the city of Samaria because of all the foundation that had been laid in advance. Paul come back and tell us in 1 Corinthians, I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the what? Increase. Jesus is not only teaching them here, he's planting some seeds with them. Now, it wasn't too much longer after Jesus spent his time with them until Jesus died on the cross. About another couple of years, he died on the cross. When he died on the cross, the Jews thought that was the what? End of him. But he rose again the third day. And when he rose again, he became victorious over death, the grave, and hell. And at that time, God gave him all power and authority. Once he received all power and authority, then he commanded his disciples for 53 days after he'd gotten up from the grave, he commanded his disciples through the apostles that they were to carry the gospel to where? Everywhere. And they failed. I keep emphasizing they failed, they failed, they failed. Because I'm emphasizing that because who else has failed? We're failing, we're failing, we're failing. We ought to be knocking the walls down here, trying to build bigger walls for people to come to have a place to worship. But instead of that, there's always empty seats here. That's because we are doing what? And I'm not just pointing the finger at you all, I'm pointing the finger at me too. We are failing. There's something that we need to do that we're not doing. Philip decided to leave his comfort zone. How many would be willing to get up and leave their family and go to a place where the Jews hated, that you'd be the talk of the town in a negative way if you went there? Most people wouldn't be willing to do that. There's some of us right now don't want to go to certain parts of this city, especially at night, because we might get accused of something that we don't want to be accused of. But we still have to teach the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, in conclusion here, as a result of Jesus' work, as a result of the time he spent there, Jesus began to cultivate the harvest while he was there. So that when Philip finally went down there, about 3.5, 4 years later, then it was easy for Philip to preach the gospel to them because they wanted to hear more about the person that they had spent 2 days with. And once he began to tell them about him, and then they saw the miracle that he was able to do. I don't know what all Jesus talked to them about. He doesn't tell us in the text here. But when they saw the miracle, they all believed, including Simon the sorcerer. They were all baptized, both men and women. And when they were baptized, when God sent Peter, told Peter to go down there, Peter was okay along with nobody but just him. But when some other folks came down, what did Peter do? We talk about with the Gentiles. He withdrew himself from them. I don't want to be associated with them. And there were Jews that still did not want to be associated with the people of Samaria. And on next week, we're going to take up chapter 5. I'd like you to do some study in chapter 5. I want to point out that the Jews and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. They went up there for a purpose. And you need to find out what that purpose was. I'm asking a question. This is going to be something you need to look for. Why did the Jews hate the Samaritans so bad? And what was the difference between the Jew and the Samaritans? What was the difference? Ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Why did the